for a Gram stain, remember there are 4 different compounds that we use. First is crystal violet. Second is iodine, Gram's iodine. Third is ethanol or ethyl alcohol. And fourth is safranin. Each of these has a specific function, which you should know from the pre-lab and other work. Your crystal violet is your primary stain. Gram's iodine is a mordant, which makes the crystal violet stay in the cell walls of gram-positive bacteria, but not gram-negative. Ethanol or ethyl alcohol will wash the crystal violet off of the cell walls unless they've been fixed in a gram-positive cell wall. And then safranin is your counterstain, which will stain everything, but you'll be able to see the stuff that didn't hold the crystal violet. Now, the reason that we use crystal violet for our primary and safranin for our secondary is because, first off, the crystal violet can be fixed into the gram-positive walls using the mordant, but also the safranin is a pink color, whereas crystal violet is a dark purple, bluish color, right? So all of the cells are going to be stained with the safranin, but the purple is so much darker that you won't see all of those gram-positive cells as pink. You'll only see them as purple. So we use a different color dye for our counterstain so that we can differentiate the two. Understand that. You might be asked about that at a later time. All right, so the steps are simple. You have your slide here on the rack. You get some crystal violet. You don't need a whole bunch. A drop or two will do you, okay? And you just have it there. Make sure that you do cover at least all of your circle. Okay, but don't use a whole dropper full. Even this was too much. It just went everywhere. We wait 30 seconds. We'll be back. All right, we've jumped 30 seconds into the future. This crystal violet has now penetrated the cell walls, and we're good to go. Now, the thing about this, you might see that there's that patch that is not covered. I dropped directly on that. It ran off of it, so there's probably some particularly hydrophobic stuff in that area that is just not let the water-based crystal violet stain stay on it. And you can see. Okay, so we rinse it in the cup. You don't have to worry about it being completely clean, but that's good like that. All right, now we add our iodine, which is, remember, it's a mordant. What it does is it fixes the crystal violet in place. Now, what you'll notice here is that, again, we're mostly getting it over in this half of our circle. Pay attention to that, because what's going to happen is that anything that the mordant is not staying on, for whatever reason, is not going to be fixed in place. That iodine is just not going to be penetrating the cell walls. So make sure that you are covering everything when possible, and if you aren't, then make a note of that, maybe even mark that on the slide when you're done, so that you're not looking in a place where the dye isn't staying. Okay, now that I've yammered on for about 30 seconds, our mordant has done its job. We rinse it off as well. Okay, so at this point, you have your slide. You've had the crystal violet applied. You've had the mordant applied. The mordant holds the crystal violet in the cell walls of the gram-positive cells, so they will stay purple. Now, what we want to do is we want to wash that stain off of everything else. To do that, we use alcohol. And with this, you want to try and make it so that this is visible under the camera. Here we go, action cam. Okay, so I'm holding this at an angle so that the alcohol dribbles right off, and then we're going to drip it on, and it will just run right off of it. and then we wash it right away. We don't give this time, or that alcohol will wash everything off. Okay, all we're doing is we're just removing it from the cells that won't hold on to it on their own. Okay, so now that that's done, we've washed it off. We're ready for our counterstain, the safranin. Again, give that a good couple of drops. And we're not going to worry about that hydrophobic area. It's just a write-off. Okay, we'll come back in 30 seconds. While we're waiting, I've used that word hydrophobic a few times. I'll just explain that in case you aren't familiar or have forgotten what that word means. Hydro is water, phobic means fear of, or in this case, doesn't like. So whatever is on the slide right there is repelling the water, and all of our different components here are water-based or water-soluble, to where they don't like to interact with that area. And so because of that, we're not holding any of our stains in that place, and so nothing is going to be stained there. So that's why we're not really worrying about it. Okay, now that we've had the safranin on there for 30 seconds, we give that a quick rinse. You can shake it dry a little bit, but you don't really have to worry about that too much because we have bibulous paper. Now, bibulous paper is a white paper of good absorbent quality, especially recommended for drying slides in bacteriological, pathological, biological laboratories, etc. What that means is this is just drying paper. It's thick and thirsty. You open it up and you can see it's been well used. What you do, you put it in, you press it down. Don't press hard. Don't squeeze or rub or anything. All you're doing, you're just soaking up the extra moisture. You can see now that it's soaked all of it up and it is stained. You can't really see much of what's going on there. It doesn't look like there's anything happening, but that's really rather a good thing. If you can see a whole bunch of purple or red or anything on that slide, then what's happened is that you probably have either too much specimen on there or you've burnt it on the hot plate. And so that baking of everything has picked up the dye and you won't be able to see anything. So having it look clear is actually, it probably means you've done it right. It might mean everything is also washed off. We'll just see once we get under the microscope. Now, one thing, remember, we did have that area that we knew was not going to take the stain very well. So I'm going to go ahead and just sort of color that out so that we aren't wasting our time looking for stuff in it. Okay, so this area here is our good area, right? And what I'm doing, now that we actually have our stain, I'm actually writing on the top as well. And the reason for this is that when you get to higher magnifications, the focal length difference between the top and the bottom of the slide is significant. And so being able to see whether you're focused on the top or the bottom can help you to find your specimen. So I like to put some marker on the top. It might even go so far as to take some lens paper with a little bit of alcohol and just clean off the bottom of the slide to get rid of the rest of that circle. It's up to you, but it's nice because it gives you something on the surface that you can see and that you'll be able to focus on.